Welcome to Sanguine Arts Locavart, the podcast that features interviews with local Twin Cities artists. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. I'm your host, interdisciplinary performance artist, Mary Prescott. Today we are speaking with Leyna Marika Papach. Leyna is an interdisciplinary composer, lyricist, violinist, and performance maker from Japan and the United States. With music as her central lens, she has created a body of work spanning theater, opera, dance, poetry, film, and the visual arts, exploring themes of displacement and unrootedness, the cosmology of music, ghosts, magic, and motherhood. Her work has been presented across the world with support from the MAP Fund, National Endowment for the Arts, Here Arts Center, Minnesota Opera, and Brooklyn Arts Exchange. She is a recipient of the American Composers Forum Music Creators Award, the McKnight Composers Fellowship, and the Japan-U.S. Friendship Commission Fellowship. Leyna has collaborated with artists across disciplines, including playwright Aya Ogawa, director Eric Ting, musicians Nels Klein and Tapan Kanti Boidio, choreographers Clarinda Mac-Low and Michelle Kwaku, and poet Will Alexander. Her ongoing dance duet with Buto dancer Chikako Bando explores the intersection of music, movement, and poetry. Her duet Waves with musician-composer Damien Strange ventures into the sonic realms of ambient dreamscapes. Leyna studied violin at the Prague Academy of Music and holds a Master of Arts in Theater Dance Studies from Das Arts in Amsterdam and a Master of Fine Arts in Sound Music Interdisciplinary Studies from Bard College. Welcome, Leyna. Thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
I want to spend a little bit of time talking about your early years because you grew up in many different parts of the world. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your international upbringing and how that influenced your art-making practices?
Well, I grew up in a family of musicians. So my mom was a flutist in various orchestras. She was Japanese. My dad is American. He was a bassoonist and a composer. So he was kind of a stay-at-home artist dad, and then my mom was, working in the orchestra. I was born in New York, and then was in Indiana briefly, 3-4 years. I think my parents moved there to get help from my dad's parents, and then my mom, um, they decided to raise us in Japan, and it was instigated by an audition that my mom won in the south of Japan. So, from 4 to 14, I was there, and then I came back here for complicated family reasons. Um, yeah, I mean, how it influenced me, I think as a person, like when you are just growing and getting to know the world, um, I kind of suppose it like a tree. Like if a tree was growing and then it was like yanked out and then put in another soil,
Mm-hmm.
and then at 14 I came back to the U.S. again, and then put back to another location.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the combination of being uprooted, trying to find myself in a culture that was partly mine, but very homogenous, and then having music, like entrenched in music through, my family and me starting violin before I even really knew what anything was, that really kind of molded my psyche for me. Yeah, so it's kind of like I clung on to music as my main language, and that's just kind of been my staple,
Right,
as I
like your
travel
steady
throughout
thing.
the world. Yeah, because that's really like the world that makes sense to me. That's how I make connections with people. That's how I communicate. Yeah, so it's really formed me as this kind of unrooted person who roams around the world with music running in her head. That's kind of my state of being.
So music in a way is sort of like the way that you think things through and like just the language that you
Yeah, like, the world makes sense to me. I mean, when I'm in that realm, not that all music is great. Some music is torturous and, like, it's
Some
not like
language is torturous too.
What?
Some language is torturous.
Yes. Yeah, it's not like I love music and I listen to music all day long. That is not the case. Um, it's not like a music lover thing, but it's more like music as a mysterious substance of, mysterious part of this world that is part of my psyche. It's part of something that I'm connected to. It seems more reliable to me than whatever we're going through or whatever, it's hard for me to get super involved in earthly matters, although, I am, but it's kind of like part of me is always somewhere else. And I think that's the same for a lot of musicians.
Maybe, although I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody articulate it in that same way, which is kind of beautiful. And it makes sense for you because you are such an international person, and so, like, having that as your, um, groundedness,
Mhm.
or, like, the soil, that, like, the tree is always having that soil, even if
Yes.
your main like, your physical soil is shifting, at least there's that thing that you're still
Yeah, yeah.
forever.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Put it that way. Um, I wanna bring up the violin because you already sort of touched on it. This is the instrument that you studied in school, and it's still a major part of your performance practice. Can you share a little bit more about your relationship to the violin specifically and the flexible compositions that you still write for yourself on that instrument?
Mhm. Yeah, so the violin's been with me, again, like, since I was 2 or 3. It was essentially my mom's dream to play the violin because she was a flutist. So she had both me and my sister play violin.
She had violin envy.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. It was her thing. I won't say, that, it's like a companion that I didn't choose, but I have, like, grown to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, when I was a kid, I was busy playing with my parents or the local orchestra or, they put a lot of, effort into exposing me to music and, growing my musicality. I think during my elementary school, late elementary school, I started to kind of really resist it. And some things happened, coincidentally, like my violin teacher ended up killing herself, um, which was a shock
Mm,
to
I'm sure.
me, but that kinda, like, led me to quit. And then when I came to the US suddenly, and I really was, like, displaced in this, as a 14-year-old, um, my mom lied to me and said that if I'd start again, then I can visit my friends in Japan. So I was kinda, like, tricked into, starting again. I mean, I was always into art and I was, always creating, but, like, yeah, the reason I came back was it's really associated with my mom.
Mhm,
Um, and so, yeah, for college, I almost went to art school because I was
mhm,
way more into the visual arts, but at the last minute, I went to conservatory, and basically hung out with all the art kids and was in experimental bands and whatnot. And
mhm,
I clearly was not. I mean, my mom was always like, "It's a way for you to, earn a living or join an orchestra," but I was never. I mean, I could play an orchestra, but, orchestra player, you have to be a good soldier. You gotta
mhm.
do the bowings, and you gotta do this, and it's really just not for me. And when I do orchestra, I mean, when I did various camps and stuff, I enjoyed it, but it didn't, if you're a creative person, it takes a lot of energy and it doesn't leave you much room for your own world. I feel, if you get a,
I do get it.
anyway, so that, I was always off the grid, let's say. On one hand, I was working hard. I went to conservatory. I did go through phases of like practicing, 8 hours a day and whatever, and just kind of really trying to figure out the instrument. And then I joined, straight out of undergrad, I joined the Geraldine Fibbers, which was a really great band that had come from the underground scene in LA. Um, Really loud, really, I mean, although it was like a folk rock band, um, we made a point to put ourselves out there, lose our hearing, go crazy,
Yeah.
and that kind of set the standard for me, as to how you play. Like it's not about beauty. It's like, it's just,
Get that
you,
energy out
yeah,
there.
you just, it's a direct, um, your instrument is just a tool for your screaming voice or something, like, or, all kinds of nuances, but it changed my, aesthetic.
Mhm. Hmm.
Um, and from there, like, I just, I was in Europe roaming around, and I didn't speak the language. I was in the Czech Republic. I was there for a good 9 years. Um, and as much as I went there to kind of quit the violin and move on to being a composer, um, the violin was how I connected to people,
Mhm. Mhm.
improvised with so many people, played Irish music, started playing with dancers, started writing for, so it's kind of like a, yeah, so it was hanging around, but I had moved on from it. Um, and it came back to my life again after I gave birth to my son, and it was just me and myself. It was hard to do all the things that I used to do, theatrical things, and then I started to want to write for myself to perform.
Mhm.
And several things happened at that time, which was that while I was going back to the violin, also my my perfect pitch went half a step down because I
Interesting.
didn't. Yeah. So apparently this happens to like most everybody with perfect pitch, but it happens when they're like 70 or 80.
Huh.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, I heard a special on NPR, and little did I know it would happen to me.
Uh-huh.
So, I was doing gigs in New York City. I mean, so basically, long story short, I came back to New York City like 20, after Europe, and then yeah, I would play gigs, wedding gigs and whatnot for money, and then one day I'm at the gig, and I'm used to having what I see on the page ring in my head as a
Mhm.
note, and then, that's correlated with where I press down on the violin.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there was a big discrepancy, like a half a step, and so people are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm
You're
like,
like, "I'm playing the violin."
like, "What key are" I'm like, yeah, it was really traumatic, I have to say, because it was like everything that it's like all of a sudden yellow is green.
Yeah. And when you would play the note that for you was registering, like, this is what that pitch is,
Mhm.
then when you heard the sound that came out of your violin, did you hear it as the note that you thought you were playing, or did that also shift, like, a half step?
Well, yeah, so it's all one thing. So in my world, it's fine, you know? A sounds like a A flat in my world, and then that's what I'm pressing, but it's not correlating.
So you hear an A flat, so then you play an A flat, But then when the sound comes out of the violin, wouldn't you then be hearing a G? Because
Yeah.
you're hearing everything a half step low, right?
Yeah, but I'm not I'm fine with that. So
You're like, "This
yeah,
is
so
great."
it's literally like if I play my own music,
Mhm.
I tune everything half a step down.
Hmm.
So then I tune my strings like a Baroque violin. So
Interesting.
then there is this correlation between what I hear as a, which is a Baroque A, um, and what I play, and then I can, improvise. In certain keys where it's tricky, my brain will do something and I can't, like usually have to calibrate. So if I'm
Mhm.
playing a gig now, for example, after learning how to deal with it, I will listen to the A. It's not the A in my head. Be like, brain, this is the A, this is the anchor point. And so then I will recalibrate my brain and then play. And then
Hmm.
usually it's fine.
Man, that's a lot of processing.
It's a lot. Yeah. So, but when it's all one, then I can, you know, I'm not doing any of that.
Hmm.
So anyway, I don't really play gigs that much anymore. So it doesn't matter. But it did change. Like, I was like, okay, so I can't really play the violin in the way I used to. I want to perform on my own. And then, so I just started looking at the violin at a different in a different way. Like
Mhm.
it's just a box that makes sound. So I'm gonna even more than before, I'm gonna deconstruct it, like that I'm gonna detach from this like world of pitch and
Yeah,
just
like
the
a total
world that I
system.
knew. Yeah, just let it go.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be a noise. I'm gonna be a opera singer. Or I'm gonna so, a lot of my work is pretty cinematic, it's pretty storytelling.
Mhm.
So then I wrote I have a few pieces that I perform. I still perform it, and it allows for, it's written as in not on paper, but the structure is written, and it's cinematic, and it goes through different, places or scenes, and I'm changing roles, but, I always, um, I l I love putting a sense of risk, in the performance and some unknowns. So it's written so that I can stretch it out. I can really change the tempo. I can add things, I can have things come up on the moment and add it in. So that's what I mean by stretchable composition. There is a narrative, there is a place where it's going, but on its journey, it allows me to, go crazy if I want to or not.
Yeah. There's room for improvisation or for something to go in
Yeah,
another direction.
yeah.
Yeah.
Within the melodic structure,
Hmm.
or not necessarily. It depends. Yeah. So that's what violin is for me, that it's a companion. I don't practice it unless there's a gig. I don't pursue, like yeah, but it's a friend, and, now my mom's gone, and, I've been through pushing instruments onto my own kid, and I I thank her for, tricking me into playing again.
So she never got you back to Japan after that to see your
No, she did
parents?
not, she did not. She's a promise breaker. She's a trickster.
So we've talked about the violin as a centerpiece of your practice and your study and your life, but you're also an interdisciplinary composer and performance maker, and you've mentioned that you participate in many worlds, yet don't feel fully a part of any of them. Can you share a little bit more about the disciplines that are part of your practice and also the sense of being part of those worlds and simultaneously not part of them?
Yeah. So, I guess since, like, high school or junior high, like I said, art, filmmaking, all these kinds of things were part of my life, and if anything, I was more focused on that. Um, so in high school, I published my own zines. I had my own, so I was always writing. I was writing comics, and I was part of the DIY kind of punk rock scene.
Hmm.
That was kind of how I learned about art, is you just go and do it. Doesn't matter if you know anything. So how I got involved in dance and theater is, like I said, it was kind of through, being in bands, being uh, playing, and then playing violin or singing in bands, and then dancers would ask me to improvise with them, you know. And then I was soon doing, this is in Prague, but I was doing sound design for um, theater projects, or not straight theater, but always kind of more experimental theater. That's kind of the world that I was in.
Hmm.
Um, and so then, when you're sitting there in the booth and you're making music for these dancers, and you know, I realized that I'm also thinking about what I would do in the theater. Like my mind is going like beyond music. So I think that parts of me that were like a comic writer, or writer or storyteller, like all kind of like was starting to culminate around
Hmm.
music. And then before I knew it, I was in these worlds, not through going to school, not through being like a theater kid, because I really was not. I hardly went to the theater. Maybe opera. My dad was a composer, so opera composer, so that was heavily in my um, history and DNA. But yeah, theater and dance is something that just came.
Hmm.
And so after that, it was just kind of how, when I was roaming around Europe, I was just going, it's like I was just sniffing and just going from whatever came up. Whoever I met, whatever inspired me, I had that kind of free to roam period in my life after. Um, yeah. So that's where I kind of, I was in a program that was in Holland that was theater oriented, but it was anybody that wants to create theater, but coming from different walks of life. Um, and so my way of going into theater, making theater, was from a musician's point of view. Um, so it's rather than, let's say, it's a piece that is stitched together by like a straight, like classic narrative. It's The language is based on music,
Hmm.
you know, music, dance, and story. So I think making pieces, every world, every discipline, I feel like the theater world, the opera world, the visual arts world, the music world, which I've all visited, they're all kind of populated by different types of people. I don't mean to stereotype, but in general, like so when I'm showing my work in the theater world, I felt like I'm not quite of this world. I don't quite use the same brain, the part of my
Hmm.
brain, that maybe this audience is interpreting or experiencing
Hmm.
work. But
Sort of like each of these practices have a different kind of a culture attached to them.
yeah, but I think literally like different types of people, like people using different parts of their brain,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
and these different types of people are, like, gravitating towards these different things,
Yeah.
so they end up together, and then, like, they're like, "Let's all use this part of our brain."
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting, like, I
Yeah.
think being in, like, the theater the whatever theater, experimental school, whatever that was, like, musicians don't really talk to each other, you just play,
Mhm.
and if you're good, you're good, if you connect, you connect, and, the 2 programs that I was part of, it was just Thus Arts, and then 5 years after that was Bard, MFA,
Mhm.
highly critical, like
Mm,
it's critique, 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 and people chewing you apart.
mm,
I mean, cutters were cutting, themselves. I mean, it was such a incubator for just dealing with what others think, and that was kind of like the training of that program, which, I still have really good friends from going through that together,
mhm,
'cause it was a low residency, and it was basically the New York art, visual art, scene in one place, and latched onto that was the sound department.
hmm,
Um, let's say, like, the, more legacy of, like, Pauline Oliveros or the sound world, you know what I mean? That's kind of with the visual art world of, the '70s and that kind of, but it's I still think it's very separate,
yeah,
but, um, yeah, learning like, that in that world, like, people hated theater with a passion,
hmm,
you know? Um, and I was doing theater or dance there, so I really got a taste of that world, and then the theater world and Das Arts, which is also talky, highly, like, from my perspective, neurotic, and critiquing and, like, what, you know, um, in a different way,
mhm,
you know? Um, and so I feel like I got to know how different, people think. I'm really glad. I mean, it was really kind of painful at the time, but now I can look at a piece of work and kinda really be objective and just really take it apart, and basically, I think it's made me, you know, feel like I can take responsibility for all the decisions that I make,
mhm,
and there are fewer blind spots, culturally, or, what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And that's been part of, uh, my growth as an artist, just being in the real world, also being in a critique world for, here and there.
mhm,
So, yeah, I feel pretty well-rounded, and also, like, I had the opportunity to l learn how to work in the theater space, by just, you know, just heading in and doing it all,
mhm.
just punk rock style. You just do it. You don't have a prop designer, you make it. You don't have a costume designer, you just make it work. You raise the money. Um,
Or you just find stuff.
yeah. Looking back, I mean, I'm proud of myself for just diving in. I mean, I also had to deal with the consequences of that, whether it was, like, going into debt, or, things not working out, but I can't say I didn't go for it.
Yeah,
And I earned my own methodology, which, I was built by experience, not through school.
right. And I was gonna say there are consequences to every decision, whether it's going for it or not going for it or whatever,
Mhm.
it just means that your life is gonna go down in a little different direction.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, you know, all we're doing is doing what we wanna do.
That's what we should be doing. Not everybody does
I
what they want to
know.
do. Did you have peers that were also doing interdisciplinary work or
Yeah, I mean, I was I was always around interdisciplinary people who had a focus, you know? I don't know that anybody was I don't find a lot of, um, music-centered people who are totally interdisciplinary, like, music as in, like, they've been doing music all their life kinda musician, like, there's a lot of people who work with music or sound, but I like, you're one example. You're yeah, I
we
think.
find each other?
I know, but there's not many of us,
There aren't, you're right.
really, like, usually music people are in their little music corner,
Mhm.
um,
I
and
mean, it's
I
very time-consuming practice, maybe that has something to do with it, but
yeah, and also the track that you're on, like, I feel like if you're a serious musician, you're usually yeah, I mean, have you? What do you think?
my practice is semi-recent, so I would say that, like, I maybe didn't know about too many people doing this kind of work beforehand, and then as I got deeper into doing interdisciplinary work, um, I mean, I think it is you're right, it's sort of rare for people to, like, venture outside of their core practice that much, at least by themselves. But I've also just been kind of noticing who else is doing interdisciplinary work, and it's it's hard to identify because it's not all the same kind of work that I'm doing, right? But it's interdisciplinary in some other way.
Yeah.
It's all kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard question. I shouldn't have asked you.
That's okay.
But going back to you, um, when you're creating something, how do you decide what kind of disciplines you're going to use for a certain project? Or maybe it doesn't work in that order. Maybe the project comes first and then,
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of some projects, like, come to me as, like, a string quartet or, you know, a video installation, so that I feel like the opportunity, whatever it is, has informed what I do.
yeah,
Like,
that makes
at
sense.
this day, I'm not gonna, like, go and raise $100,000 to work in the theater. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I I will do I will do certain things if certain opportunities come up, and I think that the reason that I made theater is because I had residencies or those opportunities. So I guess that's kind of what it is. It's like that um I'm not committed to a genre, but I'm
Right.
committed to making and, you know, these days I think about money. I think about who costs how much, how 'cause a lot of times I feel that I can connect to that's what I like about the violin is that I can connect to people just as deeply through just music. And sometimes, you know, doing more is not the answer. Not that I do more just for the sake of doing more, but, like, some things just cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, in a way, I think now I'm trying to work more efficiently, just think about, like, okay, it's great that you want to make all these you as in me, like, all these interdisciplinary pieces and work with this special performer, but, like, a lot of my stuff ends up being finite because I'm like, "Oh, this person doesn't read music, but that's okay, I'll teach him through this," and, like, it's really, like, inspired by the moment and who's in my life and who I've been wanting to work with.
Mhm.
But let's say, you know, if you don't have a score, then it's hard to recreate it, you know?
Mhm.
So I've been, like, telling myself that I'm gonna be go with score first. but that has not been the way that I work, and it I have not been that successful at switching over. I keep making interdisciplinary pieces that are inspired by, like, whoever I wanna work with. So,
I mean, that
I
makes
just
sense. It all makes sense.
you know,
Yeah.
and I don't need to be on stage. That's something about, like, my whatever long-term goal. I do like to be the 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 ship of the piece and kind of have control over most aspects, but
Mhm.
I also don't need to be on stage,
Mhm.
you know? So
Mhm.
it's kind of yeah, I've been thinking about, how I can focus, um, what interests me most and what's most important to me in the most efficient way that's, like, cuts out all the unnecessary stress. That's where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of stress went into that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You've created a number of interdisciplinary theater pieces where you were the writer, the director, and the designer. Can you share more about that part of your practice where you're doing all of these multiple things to create the piece?
Yeah, so the last time I made something like that was about 7 years ago before I moved to Minneapolis in New York City. Yeah, I think, just the way my mind works, nothing is separate from the other. Like, if I work with another, you know, playwright or choreographer, when I create, I I see everything. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's not
Mhm.
just music. I see the scene, I see the choreography, even if it's not what comes true. Initially in my imagination is 3D,
Yeah. I
you
have
know?
exactly the same experience.
Yeah. Again, it's a different kind of brain, you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I see it and I know what it sounds like, I know what it looks like, I know how
Yeah.
people move, I
It
know,
feels
like
like
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's a certain kind of, you know, how I work. So, when I have the opportunity to fill the space, I mean, theater I like the black box because you can control everything. You can make a world. You can make strange worlds that doesn't exist in real life. And for me, like, that's why I would go. Like, I don't really usually go to, it's like if I go to a restaurant, I'm not gonna go eat something that I'm not gonna go to a restaurant to eat something I can make at home.
Agree.
You know?
I also stand by that
Yeah.
rule.
Like, "Oh, this ramen I mean, this broth takes 24 hours. I've tried it before. I don't wanna do it." Like, yeah, like, let's go. So and it's the same with, like, theater. Like, I wouldn't put the effort to make a world unless it's, like, something that's not here,
Mhm,
something I can't see otherwise. It's something that I feel in myself that is so a lot of my work just tends to be about, like, the between life and death or those kinds of, it's never, about, like, a husband and a wife, or it's never about that. It's always about our connection to the other side you know, or beyond the other side, or it's just been a lot of that's I think where music lives for me.
mhm,
I don't have a lot of answers about how everything is put together, but I have clues, and so all of my theater pieces have been about that
mhm,
space, like a map, trying to make a map between our bodies, our different states of being, um, the condition of our heart, love, or our and just what's left, what's connected, what's left behind, um, our connection to the invisible world.
mhm.
That's that is my concern.
Yeah. Yeah, we're so aligned,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
our work is so aligned. It's really
Yeah.
interesting to hear you talk about it. It's beautiful. The way you speak is so, so poetic, actually. It's really lovely.
Thank you.
Um, you have an ongoing collaboration with Buto dancer Chikako Bando. Can you tell us a little bit more about that relationship, which I suspect is related to what you just talked about?
Yeah, Chikako is like she's a Buto dancer from Kyoto. Um, and when you say, a lot of Buto dancers are kind of more, again, it's like a world of, there's all kinds of Buto dancers, and there's some that are more like, um, more about the horrors of World War II and, the
Yeah.
chalk,
Yeah, yeah.
like they paint themselves white and stuff. And Banchan is a little bit, Banchan, I call her. Um, she's way more, she's a playful, um, almost like a theatrical dancer who has Budo training. But we have the same. We met like when I was, yeah, we met in the Philippines, like actually, um, about a couple decades ago, and we have the same birthday. Our sons are born like a couple months apart, so we just got attached at the hip,
Yeah.
and we kept working together. So I kept going to Japan every year, and we would make pieces together while our kids play together. And then she would come to New York for my thing. So she's probably my closest collaborator. And our pieces are kind of a mixture between movement, um, sound, and poetry.
Hmm.
So, um, and we try something new every time. Um, because a lot of times when you work with dance, let's say you work with a regular dance, like a standard dance company, a lot of times the music can come last, as in they're practicing to some other thing with, 8 beats and the movement, and then the composer comes in and then you replace it with, my music instead of a stand-in or, there's different methods, but a lot of times, like, in the very beginning, um, where dance and sound meet, it's not it's not necessarily married, you know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Hmm.
And I think that's what we explore is, like, a language where dance, movement, and everything is completely created from scratch together, and then they relate in a different way. So I hope that I haven't been to Japan in, like, 3 years, unfortunately, um, so I hope to bring Chicago back here. I
Yeah.
really miss her.
Yeah.
Such a we're such of all the collaborations I've had, it's like the most seamless.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How often do you get to collaborate on something?
I mean, until 3 years ago, it was pretty like every year,
Mhm.
we were back and forth,
Mhm.
but I'm just about to write her email.
Oh, wow. That sounds like such a deep relationship that you have with her.
Yeah, I feel really lucky, like, whenever, I'm just like, "Oh, I have" yeah, Banchan, she's proof that it can really work, you know?
Mhm. When you work with her, are you also part of the movement?
No, well, I move as a musician,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I'm definitely not like a dancer.
Mm.
I think I have a dancer I think I have that kind of sensibility, like a
Yeah.
ethereal kind of maybe in another life,
Yeah, yeah.
but, so we do move in proximity to each other, and I do most of the directing,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of interesting, um, but yeah, we move s I'm not the musician staying stationary accompanying
Yeah.
the dance,
You are
but
performing.
I am performing. We're meeting halfway,
Yeah, yeah.
and I do move, but just not like her.
Yeah. Does she ever engage in the music part, or the sound part?
No,
Mhm.
she's that's not her forte.
Well, you both have your fortes, and that's great. They complement
Yes.
one another beautifully.
Yeah.
You have a composition project coming up, a secular requiem in 8 chapters that addresses the in-betweenness of life situations.
Mhm.
Can you share more about that project?
Yeah, so I've been talking about this project so many years that it's kind of embarrassing to talk about it again when I
Some
haven't
things are
even
long
really
form,
made
you know?
it. But yeah, I've been so I think it's finally gonna come true only because there's a grant that's supporting it. So I've tried to make it come true, um, but it didn't work out without money. So anyway, I've been wanting to write, well, I guess it kind of encompasses everything that I've worked on or experienced in life, but, um, I wanted it's modeled after the Requiem, because I really like requiems.
Mhm,
Um, the Fauré Requiem, the Verdi Requiem, it's some of my favorite pieces,
mhm,
and yeah, the Christian context is also something that is related to my life because I did go to church some of the time.
mm,
I had a dad that's a Catholic that never went to church, and then I had a mom who's an atheist.
mhm.
So, um, or she believed in music or whatever. She'd be like,
Art is religion.
"Don't say God," you know? I'd be like, "Oh my god." She'd be like, "Don't say that. There's no God." So it was an interesting dynamic for with me and again, it's like, I don't mind religion because as a container, it it gives you, structure to be connected to some form of, um, existence beyond the physical.
Mhm,
And, yeah, so I wanna take the requiem form, which is, like, basically 8 prayers, but it usually a requiem is based on text. But so, um but instead of the text, I want it to be about little moments in our lives that are don't have a solution.
mm,
And I think that comes more from my Japanese side of like it's I feel like of, just kind of offering a question or a nuance or something that doesn't quite have that's not black and white. It could just be it's like a poem. And then depicting these in these 8 sections, but it's also but the it's under the umbrella of a requiem, so there would be, like, a chorus, and that's kind of speaking to the whole of the experience. Do you know what I mean?
mhm.
So, if you think of it as, like, yeah, umbrella with 8 parts, and the title is called, Person a Requiem, so it's just kind of
Called what,
a
sorry?
person slash
Mhm,
a requiem. So it's basically a ceremony,
mhm.
um, where we gather and we're like, "What the hell is going on?"
Did you get a mysterious invitation to this ceremony? What is this? What
Yeah,
are we doing
what is
here?
this? Hopefully, yeah, that's poetry, so
Yeah.
it's not necessarily I'm I feel really kind of suffocated living in the US and how it is now, and it's just seems like everybody has an answer, you know?
Yeah, everyone thinks they have an answer, and yet no one has any answers at all.
Yeah. So And I'm kind of, you know, forced to participate in it. And I know that when I leave this country, you know, all of it will seem very strange to somebody who's not in this country because this country is so specific, and it has its own dynamics and its own history, and it's such a especially since the pandemic, it's such a all-encompassing culture, and it's gotten even more, separated and compartmentalized, and, even in the art world, it's like, well, I could frame my work so that it sounds like it's accomplishing whatever it is that needs to, you know, like, um, like artist as the cultural, um, I don't know, hero. I just don't really see myself as I'm just a human being, just as, just trying to live life, and art for me is it's an ambiguous space. Like, I wanna be surprised, you know what I mean? I don't want to pick, one of the options of how to save the world. I'm trying to process the world through creating, and I don't know what the outcome is. So, and that is so this kind of on every level, let's say even compared to when was young, it's such a I feel such a heavy it's like heavy cerebral syrup that's, like, over everything, and I wanna be free.
Mm-hmm.
I want to I want to swim in the mystery, you know? So, I actually don't really know what will how the how I will develop the text or what the piece will be. I have an idea of what it was gonna be, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm just excited that it's gonna happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And that open-endedness of, like, not knowing what it is yet, I love that. I mean,
yeah,
it probably already knows what it is, but, like, it needs
yeah,
to reveal itself, right?
yes, yes. Yeah, we'll see. I'm still planning. I think it'll be either end of this year or next year.
Yeah. I love that. I love the unfolding process. Are you working with anybody for that project or have anybody in mind that you want to work with for it?
I have a ensemble in mind, but I don't wanna say it yet because I don't really it's not there's no contracts yet, but
Don't
we've
worry, you don't
talked.
have to say.
Yeah, and, I'm looking for soloists that are unconventional.
Mhm,
I'm trying to write a score so that it's not so specialized, but, I know at the end I'll end up picking the chorus, picking the soloists, and I'll write for their voices, you
mhm,
know?
mhm.
Yeah,
Very, very cool, and I can't wait to hear it.
me too.
If people want to experience your work or learn more about you, where is a good place for them to find that information?
They can go to my outdated website, um,
Which is
which is, leynamarikapapach.com. There's, like, different links. It's probably confusing. I need to organize it in a different way. But yeah, there's my stuff there. I try to keep or y I, announce my stuff on social media.
Mhm. Which platform do you use and what's your handle?
I don't know. I mean, I use Facebook and Instagram. How do I know my handle? Let me see. Leyna.m.p.
Huh, and Leyna is spelled Leyna.m.p.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's on Instagram or Facebook or both?
That's Instagram.
Okay,
Facebook, they can just look up my name.
Yeah. Leyna, thank you so much. This was really great to speak with you and hear about your work.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, super fun. And to our audience, thank you for listening. This has been another edition of the Sanguine Arts Locavart podcast.